Whether it's audiobooks or all-time greatest hits, long live listening to your favorites. Learn more about Kisqali Ribociclib 200 milligrams at KISQALI.com and talk to your doctor to see if Kisqali is right for you.
A small town in Newark, New Jersey is shaken to the core as two people are targeted, leading to an unimaginable crime that leaves a community in chaos. Detectives are searching to unravel the mystery behind what happened to 23-year-old Ashley Jones and 28-year-old Jarrell Marshall. What happens when love becomes fatal? This is the Fatal Attraction Podcast with an Envious Execution.
They were two single parents forging a future together.
They were both so committed to their children.
They was building a little family.
They were making plans for a future.
She felt safe with him.
Until a hail of gunfire shattered the illusion.
It was like, pow, pow, pow.
There were several neighbors who called in.
They heard screaming.
Mommy, 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 that's all I heard.
The children witnessed what occurred.
That is the worst thing ever.
I just felt numb.
Police soon have a lead on the killer.
Detectives uncovered video footage of the suspect.
You see him running away.
But it will take an incredible stroke of luck to confirm his identity.
There's a lady in there that might be dead?
No. All of this is connected.
It was just so horrific.
It's just senseless.
Stay with us for more on this gripping story. We will return with more of the Fatal Attraction Podcast.
January 30th, 2016. It's Saturday in Newark, New Jersey, a city of 300,000, less than 30 minutes from Manhattan.
Culturally, it is full of arts and entertainment. It's usually overshadowed by New York, but there's a lot to do in Newark.
Although Newark's big city bustle does have a downside.
There's a lot of poverty in the area, so Newark struggles with crime.
It's around 9:30 that night when Newark 911 receives a flurry of calls from a building in the city's South Ward.
Where's the emergency?
Somebody just kicked in the door in apartment 304.
We heard something that sounded like gunshots.
The gunshots were quite loud. There were several neighbors who called in.
Did you see the person?
Nah, I ain't see nobody.
Did you see anybody run out the door or? No.
No one saw the shooter leave, and all seems to be quiet in the apartment.
It's okay.
It's the apartment next door. It's quiet now. I don't hear anything.
We knew from the 911 caller, Ashley Jones leased the apartment where the shooting happened.
I got police dispatch, okay? I want you to stay on the phone with me, okay?
Was it a suicide? Was it a murder? All these things are in their minds.
While neighbors sit tight, police race to the apartment of Ashley Jones.
The shooter could still be on the premises.
Without a doubt, the best thing that officers can do is just get to the scene as quickly as possible.
23-year-old Ashley Jones was always on the go.
She never liked to stay still.
She was feisty. She was so small, but she had a big personality.
She was outgoing, fun to be around, very energetic.
She was always the loudest, the funniest. She was like the life of the party.
Ashley was always ready to have fun. She was ready to dance, ready to party, always smiling.
When Ashley was 16, her infectious smile had caught the eye of a boy named Jeffrey Holland.
He was a little older than her, but she quickly found herself attracted to him.
They hit it off immediately.
She was just taken away with him.
Jeffrey was good-looking and charming, and the relationship turned serious very quickly.
And as soon as she turned 18, Ashley and Jeffrey moved in together.
She was always going to do what she wanted to do no matter what.
A year later, Ashley gave birth to a son.
He was feisty little one. Like, he just moved around. He always had a big smile on his face.
And 2 years after that, the couple had a little girl.
She's just like Ashley. I mean, busy, busy, busy. She looks just like her.
When she had those kids, I saw a lot change in her. She matured a lot.
She's a good mother. She was protective of the kids.
Her kids was everything to her. That was her world.
But while Ashley was embracing her role as a mother, she and Jeffrey drifted apart.
She moved into her own place, and she was happy and everything.
She went back to get her GED.
When she was in high school, it was just like a hard time for her, so she didn't get to finish.
She talked to me a lot about furthering her education so she could set a better example for her kids.
Ashley and the kids wouldn't be alone for long, though. In early 2015, she met a man named Jarrell Marshall.
She was out shopping for her children. They were both in the little girl section, and they started a conversation about girls' clothing.
Excuse me, miss. Do you think this looks good?
I think that's a little too small for you.
He told her that he had a 3-year-old daughter.
It's not for me.
He shared custody with his ex-girlfriend.
I have a son around that age too.
Oh, really? We should get them together sometime.
The conversation just kind of took off from there. They spent a lot of time together and had play dates with their children.
And the play dates soon turned into something more.
The relationship between Ashley and Jarrell turned serious very quickly.
Ashley was really happy with Jarrell. She would always call me happy, text me that she was doing fine.
And they were making plans for a future.
They even moved in together.
Ashley and Jarrell was talking about marriage. They were on a very promising path.
But just a few months after Jarrell moved in, it appears that path has taken a horrifying turn.
Ashley and Jarrell have been together for only a few months, and now the police are rushing to their apartment because shots have been fired.
This type of call, it leaves a lot of doors open. Was the assailant still at the location?
No one saw the shooter leave.
It could be a murder-suicide. It could be a hostage situation. The police don't really know what to expect when they get on scene.
When police arrive, they climb the stairs to the 3rd floor and cautiously approach Ashley's apartment.
The front door has been almost kicked off the hinges.
Inside, they find Ashley and an unidentified male, both dead.
Both of them had multiple gunshot wounds.
And they're not alone.
Officers also find 3 children in the bedroom with the deceased.
Stay with us for more on this gripping story. We will return with more of the Fatal Attraction Podcast.
Whether it's audiobooks or all-time greatest hits, long live listening to your favorites. Learn more about Kisqali Ribociclib 200 milligrams at KISQALI.com and talk to your doctor to see if Kisqali is right for you.
When single mom Ashley Jones met Jarrell Marshall, she was sure she'd found the one.
They were really drawn to each other by how devoted they were to their kids.
Their relationship just took off. These two were talking about marriage, making a life together.
But now, less than a year into their relationship, police have found Ashley dead inside her apartment, along with an unidentified male.
We see 2 people in this case, both shot, and they were declared dead on the scene.
They found both victims with multiple gunshot wounds. So that made it clear that they're dealing with a double homicide, not a murder-suicide.
There are also 3 children present at the scene.
The children are traumatized, but they appear to be okay.
Family services take the children to the hospital.
When children are at a location where a homicide happens or a shooting like this, they're taken to the hospital to make sure they don't have any physical harm.
Then, once the children are safe, officers clear the scene and wait for detectives to arrive.
Newark police secure the apartment. The gunman is not there, and the detectives of the homicide task force will then respond to the scene, as we know it's a homicide scene.
To detectives, it looks like the killer caught them completely by surprise.
It was obvious the shooter kicked in the front door.
The 2 decedents were in the bedroom, one laying on his back on an air mattress that's been deflated because of the gunshot wounds that went through him, and it looks as if he never had a chance to even get out of the bed.
By appearances, Ashley hardly had more time to react.
She's in that fetal position with her head towards the ground.
Based on the evidence at the scene, detectives believed they were dealing with a single shooter.
We recovered 7 shell casings. They were all .40 caliber shell casings.
There was no weapon found.
There's also nothing to indicate that they were the victims of a robbery gone wrong.
Didn't appear as though anything was taken from the apartment.
The cops found the victim's wallet and IDs.
Finally putting a name to their other victim.
They were able to confirm that Jarrell Marshall was the second victim.
Hoping to learn more, detectives exit the apartment and head next door to talk to the neighbors who'd called 911.
At this time, we don't know who the killer is yet.
Talking to neighbors reveals the complex relationship between Ashley, Jarrell, and the 3 children inside the apartment.
2 children belonged to Ashley Jones, and one of the children there belonged to Jarrell Marshall.
She's Jarrell's daughter with another woman.
But he's not the father of the other 2?
No, sir, they're from a previous relationship.
Jarrell Marshall moved in with Ashley Jones not too long ago.
The kid's father, does he ever come around?
Not that I know of.
The neighbor also said that Ashley was a good mom. She was a good person.
When the detectives asked the neighbors about Jarrell, they said he seemed nice, but they didn't really know too much about him.
Neighbors don't have much information to add about the gunman either.
From the beginning, the neighbors were saying that they heard the door kicked in, they heard gunshots, and they heard the female screaming during the gunshots. And then they hear more gunshots and she is no longer screaming.
The woman tells the detectives that after the gunshot stopped, she heard a child saying, "Where's mommy? Where's mommy?"
Everything she said was consistent with the 911 call.
But now they're able to provide some additional information for detectives.
The neighbor said just a week earlier, she heard a man yelling outside her apartment building. But when she looked out her window, she couldn't see where it was coming from.
She says she'd gone out into the hallway to investigate.
She told them Ashley was walking down the hallway alone.
She said that Ashley was visibly shaken and had a black eye.
It was obvious to the neighbor that Ashley was trying to get away from someone, but she didn't have any idea who it was.
Ashley wouldn't tell her what was going on.
However, the neighbor says she'd heard the yelling again that night.
He yelled something when he came in, before he started shooting.
What did he say?
I couldn't make it out, but it was the same guy.
The neighbor said that the voice in the apartment, just before the gunshots, sounded like that voice.
The neighbor never saw the man's face, but there may be another way for detectives to identify him. They head down to the lobby to meet the apartment manager, who has pulled the building's surveillance video.
Investigative staff had looked for any type of videos, because again, we don't know which way the suspect would have ran. And so we were able to recover several videos.
The best footage comes from inside the lobby and stairwell, and gives detectives a good look at their likely killer.
The video in the lobby was very helpful because in the video, you can see the suspect enters through the front door, walks to the mailboxes, touches the mailbox, which we later learn is Ashley Jones's mailbox, flips it open and closes it while wearing a glove, and then goes to the stairwell. We then have a video in the stairwell that you can see him going up the stairs to Ashley Jones's apartment.
But the video doesn't reveal the suspect's face.
He was wearing a mask.
However, detectives can see very clearly what the suspect is wearing.
He has a black North Face jacket. He has a red hooded sweatshirt and green cargo pants.
But what's really telling for detectives is the way the suspect came and went.
From what they could tell, he went inside, ran upstairs to kill Ashley and Jarrell, and then came running back down again.
He misses the landing to go out to the lobby. It almost looks like he was running so fast that he almost went to the basement.
It was clear this guy came to kill.
The way the shooter was in and out of the apartment, this looked like a hit.
Stay with us for more on this gripping story. We will return with more of the Fatal Attraction Podcast.
Whether it's audiobooks or all-time greatest hits, long live listening to your favorites. Learn more about Kisqali Ribociclib 200 milligrams at KISQALI.com and talk to your doctor to see if Kisqali is right for you.
Newark police investigating the murder of Ashley Jones and her boyfriend, Jarrell Marshall, have just found surveillance footage of the suspect.
Detectives were able to observe an individual entering the building shortly before the shooting occurred, and then running from the building right after shots were fired.
You see him running away, but you don't see the face. He's wearing a mask. We don't know who the killer is.
Although detectives are fairly sure of one thing.
With nothing being taken in the short time that the person was there, it looks like a hit.
The question is, was Jarrell the target, or was it Ashley?
The apartment was in a sort of a rough area.
Detectives wonder if Jarrell or Ashley or both of them had got mixed up into some criminal activity.
But when detectives run a search, they don't find any history of arrests for either Ashley or Jarrell.
Which leaves detectives wondering if there could be another motive at work.
According to the neighbors, Ashley and Jarrell only started dating recently. So could it be a jealous ex?
Ashley had 2 children. Jarrell had a child with another person. So they wanted to see if there was any domestic involvement, any custody things going on.
Investigators have barely begun to consider these questions when a hysterical woman shows up in the apartment lobby and approaches them.
My baby! Where is she? Where's my baby?
The mother of Jarrell Marshall's child showed up at the scene once she heard that there was a shooting of some sort.
After the woman explains that she's Jarrell's ex, detectives inform her that her daughter is safe and that Jarrell is dead.
Jarrell didn't make it.
Oh my God.
She's obviously distraught.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
I just can't believe it.
She said things didn't work out with Jarrell, but he's a good man and a good father.
However, she's less complimentary about Ashley's ex, Jeffrey Holland.
She says that they maybe should speak to Ashley's ex because Jarrell had been telling her that there's been some trouble.
What kind of trouble?
He didn't really say.
Intrigued by what Jarrell's ex tells them, detectives direct her to the hospital so she can reunite with her daughter. And then they reach out to Jeffrey.
At this point, the detectives need more information.
Mr. Holland.
They called him and told him what happened, and he had to come to the hospital for the kids.
When detectives arrive at the hospital, they learn that the doctors have cleared the children for release.
Thankfully, there was no physical injuries to the children.
Despite that, detectives are in no hurry to speak to them.
The oldest is only 4, and it's questionable whether he'd be able to tell the investigators anything.
Instead, They wait for Jeffrey to arrive. When he does, they ask him to make arrangements for his children, then come down to the station.
The police asked him if he was willing to go back to the precinct to answer some questions.
We ask him, just like we do for all family members, can we just talk to you a little bit? Maybe we can rule you out, just give us a statement of some sort so that we can figure out what's happening here and help our investigation to find out who murdered Ashley and Jarrell.
When detectives finally sit down with Jeffrey the following morning, they begin by probing into his relationship with Ashley.
When did you guys break up?
Broke up about a year or so ago.
Any issues since then?
I ain't gonna lie to you.
Jeffrey admits he and Ashley had their fair share of problems, but when asked about the murders, he insists he wasn't involved.
He denied having anything to do with their deaths.
He denied ever owning or even firing a gun.
Jeffrey also denies being anywhere near Ashley's apartment at the time of the murder.
Jeffrey Holland says he hasn't been there in about a month or so. He claims not to have any contact with her. And with regards to Jarrell Marshall, he claims not to have any contact with him either. He just denies any involvement in this homicide.
Wait right here.
However, before letting Jeffrey go, detectives decide to run a quick background check. And what they uncover is concerning.
Jeffrey was someone that was constantly in trouble with the law.
There's a long rap sheet. There's a lot of arrests for harassment and sexual violence.
He also had an outstanding warrant from East Orange for an assault.
But that wasn't all detectives uncovered about Jeffrey.
Ashley Jones had filed a restraining order against Jeffrey Holland.
He was served with that restraining order in middle of January of 2016. Our homicide happened a week and a half or so later.
Stay with us for more on this gripping story. We will return with more of the Fatal Attraction Podcast.
Whether it's audiobooks or all-time greatest hits, long live listening to your favorites. Learn more about Kisqali Ribociclib 200 milligrams at KISQALI.com and talk to your doctor to see if Kisqali is right for you.
Detectives investigating the double murder of Ashley Jones and Jarrell Marshall have just discovered that barely 2 weeks before their deaths, Ashley took out a restraining order against her ex, Jeffrey Holland.
Detectives have a strong suspicion that Jeffrey has something to do with these murders.
He was served somewhere in the middle of January, which was about a week and a half to 2 weeks before the murder.
Despite their suspicion, detectives have no proof that Jeffrey was behind the murders, but they do have a way to keep him in custody.
Mr. Holland, you're under arrest.
He has an outstanding warrant for unrelated assault charges.
Stand up, put your hands up against the wall.
It gives the detectives a reason to hold him while they continue their investigation.
So once we got done speaking to him, he's in custody until a judge sets the bail and he can get out.
With Jeffrey in custody, detectives' next step is to meet with Ashley's mother, who is still reeling from the news of her daughter's death.
I didn't believe it. I was just with her that Saturday afternoon for a little while, and I'm still in shock.
Although distraught, Ashley's mother is anxious to find her daughter's killer.
Do you know of anyone that would want to hurt Ashley?
Her kid's father.
Jeffrey Holland?
Yes. My first thought was Jeffrey, because they were having problems and he's threatened her and she had restraining orders.
Ashley's mom says that her daughter's relationship with Jeffrey had gone well at first.
He was pretty quiet most of the time, nothing like out of the ordinary.
She was happy. She said she was in love.
But Ashley's mom says she eventually discovered that her daughter was keeping a horrible secret.
June 2014, she called me. She said, "Don't get upset." I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "I'm at the police station. Jeffrey hit her and she blacked out."
It was a surprise to the family when they found out that she was in an abusive relationship.
Ashley never opened up to me about the situation. She never told me how bad the relationship was.
He tried to dictate every aspect of her life, where she went, who her friends were, who she hung out with, what she wore.
Jeffrey treated Ashley like a possession. He made it clear that she belonged to him.
Every time she tried to stand up for herself, he would just beat it out of her.
It was painful and sad to hear that. She hid the abuse from me for a long time.
Ashley's mother says she urged her daughter to end the toxic relationship, but she initially refused.
She didn't have much of a father, and she didn't want that for her kids.
She wanted to make this work.
She held on thinking that maybe one day he was gonna get better.
But Jeffrey's behavior only got worse, and Ashley finally realized he would never change.
She was tired of her kids being exposed to that type of environment. She wanted to set a better example. She wanted to leave.
Ashley knew that she had to get away from Jeffrey. She found a place of her own and moved into her new place while he was away.
Still, he wouldn't leave her alone.
Jeffrey was furious. He would call her phone over and over again, leaving threatening messages.
Until, according to Ashley's mom, Jeffrey's terrifying behavior suddenly stopped.
Jeffrey had a new woman in his life.
When he got the new girlfriend, Ashley was happy. She like, oh, now somebody else could deal with this. Whew, like she felt like it was good for her, like it was safe for her to move.
Soon after, Ashley met Jarrell.
Jarrell was different from Jeffrey. Jarrell was kind and gentle with Ashley.
Jarrell was a really good guy.
She felt safe, she felt free.
But her mother says that changed when Jeffrey found out that Ashley was seeing someone new.
Ashley was in love. I think it was too much for him to handle.
He was angry, jealous.
His phone calls and text messages became threatening again.
Then, 2 weeks before the murders, Jeffrey physically assaulted Ashley outside her building.
She had called me and said he had beat her up pretty badly and left her with a black eye again.
This was apparently the same incident that a neighbor had witnessed.
Ashley was determined that it wouldn't happen again.
She went to court and got the restraining order to let him know that she wasn't afraid of him anymore.
Ashley knew how dangerous Jeffrey could be, but Ashley was happy in her life. She didn't want Jeffrey to have any control over her.
Plus, she had Jarrell by her side.
He was the backbone that she needed to take that final step.
But had taking that final step cost Ashley and Jarrell their lives? Detectives believe that's the case.
The killer wanted Ashley Jones to suffer because he is shooting the new boyfriend while she's there screaming and then shoots her.
It was like he wanted Jarrell's death to be the last thing that she witnessed.
Everything points to Jeffrey Holland.
All detectives lack is a piece of evidence to tie Jeffrey directly to the crime scene.
We're all about evidence, about facts, about proofs, and we will continue to investigate until we prove our case.
At the same time, other members of Newark's homicide task force are working just as diligently to solve the murder of another young woman, 19-year-old Taniqua Rouse.
A friend found Taniqua's body in her apartment 24 hours before the discovery of Ashley and Jarrell.
The detectives' desks, coincidentally, are side by side in the homicide task force.
And just like Ashley and Jarrell's murder, detectives have surveillance footage of their suspect.
They were able to find a surveillance video that showed an individual leaving the apartment. And they could see his face quite clearly.
Hey, can you scroll to that last picture again?
Sure, what's up?
She stops the picture and shows who her suspect could be.
I don't believe it.
The man in the surveillance footage was Jeffrey Holland.
Stay with us for more on this gripping story. We will return with more of the Fatal Attraction podcast.
Detectives investigating the murder of Ashley Jones and Jarrell Marshall have just made an astonishing discovery about their prime suspect, Ashley's ex, Jeffrey Holland.
Jeffrey actually looks like a suspect that was caught on video in another murder.
19-year-old Taniqua Rouse had been found dead in her apartment just 24 hours before the gunman kicked in Ashley Jones's door.
A friend of Taniqua's was going there just to check on her because she hadn't returned any of his phone calls that day.
He goes into Taniqua's apartment and he finds her lifeless body in the bathroom.
The bathtub was overflowing with water, and there's Taniqua Rouse, who's partially submerged.
He immediately calls 911.
Officers and detectives are immediately dispatched to the apartment, and they quickly find evidence of foul play.
We can see that she has faint finger marks on her neck, and based on the harm that was done to Taniqua Rouse, we realized that this was a homicide.
Hoping to ID a suspect from the apartment's surveillance camera, the detectives reviewed the stills back at the station.
The individual was seen entering her apartment building and leaving her apartment.
He got there sometime in the afternoon when it was still light out, and he stayed there for several hours. And it was most likely the killer of Taniqua Rouse.
But he'd remained unidentified until the detectives investigating Ashley and Jarrell's murder just happened to see the photos.
I don't believe it.
What?
They're shocked that the person that they're seeing is also the person who we just interviewed regarding the Ashley Jones murder.
This guy is in lockup downstairs.
You gotta be kidding me.
Taniqua's case was in danger of going cold, but when these same detectives began to speak with detectives who were working on Ashley Jones's case, they started to believe that Jeffrey Holland may have something to do with both of these murders.
So at this point, the two task force squads start to merge their investigation.
The footage of Jeffrey leaving Taniqua's apartment is enough to convince a judge to sign a pair of search warrants.
The first was for Jeffrey's phone, which detectives took off of him when he was booked for the outstanding assault charge.
An examination of Jeffrey's cell phone revealed 2 photos of a woman in a bathtub.
The woman's face isn't visible, but there is little doubt it's Taniqua.
In the photos, her body was in the same position in the bathtub, but there was no water.
When police first arrived on the scene at Taniqua's, the bathtub was filled with water.
These photos undeniably placed Jeffrey Holland at the scene of the crime.
Next, detectives searched Jeffrey's apartment.
They enter the apartment, and when they get to his bedroom, on the floor are green cargo pants. Inside the green cargo pants are red gloves, as well as a black mask.
It appeared to match the same description of the clothing that was worn by the suspect when he fled the apartment when Ashley and Jarrell had been murdered.
There's no gun, but police do find evidence of one.
They do find .40 caliber ammunition that matches the shell casings from the crime scene, as well as a holster and a magazine for a handgun.
Clearly, his claim that he never owned a gun looks like a big lie at this point.
With the evidence piling up against Jeffrey, detectives have him hauled in from his holding cell for another round of questioning.
I already told you I didn't do anything to Ashley.
We want to ask you about Taniqua.
Who?
Drop it. We know you were there.
Officers showed Jeffrey the pictures that were in his phone.
Okay, but it's not what you think.
When confronted with the photos, Jeffrey admits he was there, but he denied killing her.
We was hanging out, we was having a good time.
He described the relationship as being strictly sexual.
But according to Jeffrey, in the midst of his hookup with Taniqua, things took a horrifying turn.
Yo, you good?
Jeffrey claimed that at some point, Taniqua was acting really strange, like she wasn't feeling very well.
Then suddenly, Jeffrey says Taniqua's eyes rolled back, and she collapsed.
He claims that she was having some sort of seizure.
Yo, Taniqua.
Next thing he knew, she'd passed out.
Yo, Taniqua, you good? Taniqua. Yo, wake up.
He claims he tried to resuscitate her, but when he failed to resuscitate her, he just panicked and left.
Detectives know it's a lie.
There's nothing in that autopsy report about a possible seizure.
Cause of death is strangulation and drowning.
Examiners ruled her death a clear murder.
But while Jeffrey's statement and the photos on his phone put him squarely at the scene of Taniqua's murder, the evidence tying him to Ashley and Jarrell's deaths isn't as strong.
The similar clothing, the surveillance evidence, and the shell casings were all circumstantial.
But detectives may still have a witness: Ashley and Jeffrey's 4-year-old son.
When it happened, he was scared to say anything, but once he knew that he was okay and now he was safe, he started opening up.
What he had to say was heartbreaking. It turns out he actually saw the murders.
Stay with us for more on this gripping story. We will return with more of the Fatal Attraction podcast.
Detectives investigating the murder of Ashley Jones and Jarrell Marshall have a mountain of circumstantial evidence against 27-year-old Jeffrey Holland.
We executed a search warrant at his house, and the clothes that were found in his apartment matched the clothes that were used during the murder of Ashley Jones and Jarrell Marshall. And the gloves are the same that were used.
They also find .40 caliber ammunition, which matches the shell casings that were found at the murder scene.
They also have evidence that Jeffrey is capable of murder.
Jeffrey was also caught on camera outside of Tanika Rouse's apartment around the time of her murder.
But with nothing concrete to tie Jeffrey to Ashley and Jarrell's murder, filing charges in that case proves to be more difficult. Until Ashley's mom calls detectives again in late February 2016 with some vital information that could break their case.
She said that Ashley's 4-year-old son definitely witnessed the murders.
At first, he was scared to say anything.
Ashley's mother recounts to detectives exactly what her grandson told her he saw that night.
He said it was his dad that killed both of them.
He saw the whole thing, and what's more hurting than watching your father murder your mother?
That is the worst thing ever.
Coupled with the circumstantial evidence prosecutors already have, the son's idea of his father as the shooter is more than enough for murder charges.
He was charged with the murder of Tanika Rouse, he was charged with the murder of Ashley Jones, and he was charged with the murder of Jarrell Marshall.
When Jeffrey goes on trial in October 2018, the prosecutors argue that the murders are the product of a vengeful man with a sick need for control.
He is just a jealous ex-boyfriend that didn't get his way. He was mad that Ashley moved on, even though he already moved on. And he was mad that he couldn't control her anymore.
When he found out she was actually moving on, like seriously with somebody else, he got crazy because he was losing the grasp he had on her.
Why Jeffrey killed Taniqua isn't as clear, but prosecutors argue that there is no doubt about what he had done.
According to prosecutors, Jeffrey went over to Taniqua's apartment the evening of the 29th, possibly, as he claimed, to have a good time.
But at some point in the evening, he became enraged and strangled Taniqua. He held her head down in the tub until she stopped struggling.
And once he escaped, in his mind, he really thought he got away with it.
Then, less than 24 hours later, Jeffrey struck again.
He goes to Ashley's apartment and kicks open the door, taking Ashley and Jarrell by surprise.
He shoots Jarrell Marshall 5 times in front of Ashley Jones, and she's screaming for her life. She's horrified at what's happening. And then he shoots her twice.
When it's the defense's turn, Jeffrey takes the stand and denies killing anyone.
Jeffrey continues to say that Taniqua's death was an accident.
He claims that Taniqua must have had a seizure.
She convulsed, and then you said she was no longer alive, correct?
Correct.
Of course, he said it was an accidental death, and he adamantly denied any involvement in the Ashley Jones or Jarrell Marshall murders.
You did not kill Ashley Jones and Jarrell Marshall, correct?
That is absolutely correct. I never shot anybody.
Sitting in trial, I was pretty angry. It was just like, why lie? When you sat in trial too, you see everything that they have against you.
Murder is what he did.
When the case goes to the jury, they agree.
They found him guilty on all counts. Jeffrey was sentenced to 60 years for each murder, plus 10 years for a weapons charge.
He'll be spending the next 190 years in New Jersey State Prison.
Do I think justice was served? Depends on what you call justice. I'll put it like that.
I don't think he deserves to live. Honestly, I don't. He took her life. He shouldn't even get that. Yeah, he's in prison, but he's still living. Like, it's not fair to me.
I hope God got something waiting for him on the other side.
No matter the punishment, nothing can ever repair the 3 families Jeffrey destroyed.
The biggest victims out of it all is these children.
Ashley's children and also Jarrell's child is without a father.
Every day, I pray for those kids. It broke my heart.
Although the family does hope that Ashley's story can serve as a warning for other young women suffering from domestic violence.
If you see red flags right away, just leave the situation before you get too deep into it, because it's not worth it. Like, not worth it at all.
Take this very seriously, because once you're gone, you're not coming back.
Jealousy can do the most frightening things when it comes to love. The truth was revealed as detectives uncovered what happened to Ashley Jones and Jarrell Marshall. Stories like these leave us feeling saddened, but they serve as reminders that domestic violence is never okay. If you see something, say something.
Abuse is never okay. If you or someone you love is in an abusive relationship, there is help available. Call the Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE.
Coming up on the next episode of the Fatal Attraction Podcast.
She was a sweet, ambitious teen with her whole life ahead of her.
She was just full of life.
She always had a smile on her face.
He was her first love.
He was a nice kid.
Very outgoing, friendly.
She was deeply in love with him.
But then their future goes up in smoke.
There was a huge explosion.
What changed the love between 2 friendly and outgoing teenagers into turmoil? Did love give way to hate? We delve into what caused this once thriving love story to unravel. Tune in to the next episode of the Fatal Attraction Podcast. We will see you.